Happy New Year! Hope you've had a great one so far. Join me today as I talk to a nurse that turned into an assisted living facility operator full time. Let's find out how she did it. My name is Carl Cuesta with Assisted Living Facility Rookie. Welcome to the show. I
No
know we haven't
worries.
officially met, but can you tell me about yourself and how you fit into the assisted living facility puzzle?
Yeah, so I've been doing residential assisted living for about 16 years now.
Wow.
I do both elderly and adults with developmental disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm located in California. I have multiple facilities throughout the state. Um, and then I guess throughout my journey, in the last maybe 6 or 7 years, I started doing consulting and helping others open up their own facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while in the same token, I'm still operating my own.
Wow. So 16 years, you said?
Yeah, it's about a little bit over 16 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, what was your first like thinking? What were your first thoughts? Like, what made you jump into assisted living facilities? Like, what was your why back then?
So back then I was a dialysis nurse and I was working like 12, 14-hour shifts, 4 days a week. My kids were still pretty young at that time, so I wasn't spending a lot of quality time with them. They were spending most of their days like after school. They would go to after school program and then stay there till like 6. I would start work at 6 a.m., usually get home between 6 and 7, 6 and 8. So
That's a long
um
day. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So at that time I had a part-time job with a regional center. It's an agency that serves adults, or I'm sorry, it's an agency that serves any age person with developmental disabilities. So I was doing part-time nursing with them, and then I was able to see the need for assisted living for that population.
mhm.
So at that time, I decided to serve the population. I opened my first facility and then still kept my job at that time for a few more years.
And that's a big jump. Like, did you have any mentors that like told you like, all right, this is what has to be done, or you just kind of like learned like while you were at the job, or like how did that go?
Yeah, so back then we didn't really have mentors like we do now. We didn't have the internet the way TikTok, Instagram. So those resources weren't available. The only resource that I really had was the state website, state licensing website, and then the state's websites that had all the regulations.
Mhm.
And so at that point, I studied it pretty deeply, the regs, and then I created my own systems, my own forms, my own, files, employee files, client files, facility files, my own um, training program for our staff. So I pretty much had to invent my own wheel at that point.
That's amazing. You probably had the best resource. You were actually someone that actually goes through the regulations and learned everything.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's really good. I haven't told you, but I'm also a nurse as well. And I
Mhm.
started also like back in '09, but it took me a while to come on assisted living facilities, like say '09 and like what, just 2024. So just now, getting like my mind wrapped around it, like, oh man, this is the way to go. My parents are getting older.
Mhm.
One of my reasons is like, my parents, I would love to have a private duty nurse and, keep them in my house, but it's financially it's just impossible right now.
Costly, yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
I find, and I've mentored a lot of people that open facilities, assisted living, just because of that fact, their parents are aging and they still want to be able to stay in their home.
Mhm.
They want to be able to know who's taking care of their parents. So I know several people that have opened facilities in their parents' home, got it licensed and then
Mhm.
have, three or four other residents living in the home, and it covers the cost of their parents' care,
Mhm.
while, still running a business. So pretty
Now,
popular.
I know you're consulting. Like, what uh, is it like all states that you're covering, or like just California? Like, how does that work? Can you tell me more
Um,
about that aspect of it?
yeah. So like I said, I've been doing consulting here in California for many years.
Mhm.
Um, and I started branching out to other states, just because as I got into real estate investing, I get a lot of people coming at me asking me about assisted living
Mhm.
and then wanting to, like, how do I get into it? How do I start? Where do I go? So I at first I started pointing them in the right directions, and then I started looking at the different state websites just so I knew what I was talking about when I was pointing them into that direction. They would still come back at me asking questions, and I really didn't know because of the not being familiar with their state regs. So once I started looking at like Texas, Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, I realized that their regulations are pretty similar. Their licensing process is pretty similar to California. And I just started doing more research, checking out more states, state by state. I built up a database of all the links to all of the state websites, all of the licensing websites, and all of the state resources. And then just little by little over the last year and a half, have been studying each state and see the variances, but pretty much with the exception of, regulations that are different here and there, the licensing process is pretty similar.
I know that I recently talked to, like, I don't have any assisted living facilities right now. Hopefully this January we'll be closing on my first one. So,
Oh, nice.
but like to start from the ground up in Texas, when I did talk to a consultant, it was like 18 months is the average. Uh they said they can go a little faster, maybe like 12 months with them, but by yourself it's about 18. Does that sound about right to you, like in California or Texas or
So California is about 4 to 6 months, and
Wow.
actually, that's a little strange. I was helping somebody, just answering questions, not really going through that process with
Mhm.
them in San Antonio, and the licensing time was about 6 to 7 months, I believe.
That's pretty fast.
So, yeah, yeah. As long as you have to, when you're opening a facility, you have to have like a timeline, um, build yourself a timeline, milestones, so that while you're doing that licensing process, you're simultaneously doing other things, right? You're not just, okay, I'm gonna submit my license and then I'm gonna wait until I hear
Mhm.
back from them. So there are different things that you can do, milestones that you can make along that process to help speed it up.
Okay. Like maybe I didn't ask him the right way. Because I was thinking like from scratch, like getting the real estate and then operating. Maybe that's what they were talking about. But licensing,
Mhm.
yeah, okay. So that sounds like a good time
Yeah.
range. Wow. Like so you've been doing it for about 16 years. Like how many assisted living facilities do you have like now? And like how do you manage like so many?
Currently operating, I have five.
Wow.
So every facility has a administrator, or a house manager. And so just making sure that the admins are seasoned, they're well trained, um, open communication with them, and routine meetings. Uh, that's pretty much it.
Like do you do like a weekly meeting with them or like is it like a monthly thing? Is
So with the administrators, I meet with them every month, but I'm in communication with them daily. We're always texting, I'm always checking on them, making sure that, they have everything that they need. And then we have a protocol, if there's something, change in the client's condition, they notify me. Any calls, it's just a really good system. We have a strong communication system
Mhm.
that helps.
That's that's pretty amazing. Like, so you with your first one was the ground up. Were any of the other ones like established ones that you purchased, or like they were all ground up?
Yeah, I developed my own.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Uh, I'm sure after having five assisted living facilities, there's some challenges. Like, do you can you like think of one challenge and one solution, or is there like a solution to it?
There's always going to be challenges along the way. I
Maybe like a
would
common
say
challenge, maybe like a common challenge
common
you face.
challenge is finding really good staff, being able to, not have that staff turnover. So
Mhm.
COVID, prior to COVID, it wasn't so bad. COVID hit us really bad, because out in here in California, a lot of our caregivers were getting paid more by those by unemployment and then those
Yeah.
COVID supplements. So it hit us pretty bad. But we got through it. So I would say staffing can be challenging at times.
Hmm.
Maintaining a really good crew. Um, and then, dealing with call-ins and vacations, stuff like that. So I would say that's the biggest challenge that we have.
Okay. Okay. Do you guys ever use like an agency or something to feel like, let's say someone calls in, how do you deal with that? Like, do you have the manager fill in, or like is there an agency you go to in case something like that happens, or
Yeah, so our managers and administrators are prepared for those, those staffing shortages, staffing emergencies. We
Mhm.
used an agency during COVID,
Mhm.
um, but it was super expensive. It was double, yeah, double
I'm
what
sure.
we pay staff. So, that was pretty much the only time that I did use a staffing agency was during that COVID pandemic.
Mhm.
But for the most part, our managers are pretty equipped to take care of those staffing shortages. And then our staff are pretty good about covering for each other, switching schedules. So,
In terms of like the assisted living facilities that you have now, um, like, are you guys all in California, or is it like different states? Like,
so the ones that I'm operating are in California.
mhm. And then are they all like, the reason I'm asking is like, how do you, like, I'm still amazed that you manage like this many, to me, like, because one of the challenges for that I'm facing now is, when we do acquire this assisted living facility in like hopefully January, the management aspect of it, like
Mhm.
we're basically promoting from within, so that person that's been there for 2 or 3 years kind of knows like the ropes. But we do want them to be like a good to be a good manager, but then we're losing that, the employee that she once was. So I guess it's just my thing, like, how are you training the managers? How are you, like, what training, what, I know there's that manager course. What other trainings can you give a manager? Can you offer them as a resource to help them to be better than at their current state?
Yeah, so that's kind of that's a part of my training program that I've developed over the years.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of it is on regulations, a lot of it is on client rights, employee rights. Yeah, so it's just a big training program that we've developed within.
That's
And
awesome.
then when you talked about losing that direct care staff
Hmm.
position when you're promoting within, most of our employees are referring people that they know,
Hmm.
versus us using like we have used like Indeed, jobseeker.com, I think, and then ZipRecruiter. We've used that in the past, but for the most part, our own employees are giving referrals. We give them referral bonuses, so they're referring other employees. And we like that. Um, we like that method better because of course they're not going to refer somebody that they can't work with.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so we've been really successful with referrals within our own staff.
Awesome, awesome. Like, how does someone like? Can you kind of walk me through the process of someone like says, "Hey, I want to start my assisted living facility in Texas." Like, do you have like a timeline or some things that you would say to them, and like just the process for that? Like, how does that work?
So when people come to me asking and inquiring about the industry, the first thing I tell them to do is make sure they're doing their research. Go
Mhm.
on the internet, learn what assisted living is about, what services are being provided, and the population that they're serving, whether it's seniors, adults with developmental disabilities, mental health, veterans, or whatnot. Make sure you're doing your research. Um, and then the second thing that I'll tell them to do is kind of zone in on their market area. So that zip code, that neighborhood. Um, you want to do like a market research. You want to find out what other facilities are in that area, how many, what are they charging, what is their occupancy rate, um, are there big box facilities, so those commercial assisted living communities in the area. If you find like new assisted living communities popping up in the neighborhood, they've already done that market research. So it's a fire neighborhood, right? So
Mhm.
it's you're in a good spot. The next thing I would tell them is to do some sort of secret shopping. Call those residential facilities, call those box big box facilities, and say you're looking for a family member, set up tours, just do secret shopping.
Mhm.
Um, when you're touring the facility, you want to pay close attention to their layout, the amenities that they're providing. When I talk about layout, how big are their rooms, how many people are in the room. When they got shared rooms, how big is that room?
Mhm.
Look at the bathrooms. Is it accessible? Do they have roll-in showers? You want to make sure that they don't typically, if you're doing residential assisted living, those homes don't typically have to be ADA compliant, but they should be accessible. So 36-inch doors, ramps at the front, ramps at the back door, slider door. Um, Once you do that secret shopping and you get an idea of, what you're charging, what others are charging, at that point, look at the state websites, look at what the regulations are, and then just kind of start exploring the neighborhood. When you're looking as far as looking for a home or a property.
Mhm. Do you ever recommend like some people say HOA isn't a problem, but do you ever recommend having a residential assisted living facility that has an HOA as well? Like in
Yeah.
Texas, like most places have HOAs. It's hard to avoid unless you're like way out in the boonies or something. But like, what's your take on that?
I'm in a couple of HOAs.
Mhm.
This population is protected, so an
Mhm.
HOA can't really restrict you from opening in their neighborhood.
Mhm. It's awesome.
They're still
Awesome.
considered residential assisted living. So there's laws that protect um, these homes from opening.
Would you like tell an HOA prior, or is there even a need to tell them like, hey, I'm opening up an residential assisted living facility? Uh, can't stop me. Like, what do you say to these guys? Do you even tell them anything? Like, how does that?
Uh, So I'm not an attorney,
I
but
got you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I've not given any notice. I mean, again, it's the this industry is protected.
Hmm.
And in California, an HOA cannot stop you or close you down from opening up in a neighborhood. So I've never let the HOA know ahead of time.
Makes sense. Yeah, because it doesn't is there's no signage or anything. So that's one of the things that I love about assisted living facility. Like it feels like a home.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's very good. Okay, well that's so awesome. Yeah. I know a couple of people are trying to do from the ground up. So that's one of the challenges that we had. Like, do we go from the ground up and establish, purchase a home and set everything up, get the sprinklers going, or do we want to buy established? And, it was just for us a lot easier to buy an established one and then learn from there. And then maybe in the future when my parents really do need the place, maybe we'll just turn their home into
Mhm.
like an ALS.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's up to the person, whatever your goals are.
mhm,
Um, with buying established facility, you're pretty much it's not always turnkey. There's always going to be upgrades that need to be done, renovations and whatnot. But for the most part, the system is in place, and you could change it as you go where you see fit. If you're opening from ground up or developing on your own, I've done it, and after the first one, it's a lot easier after the first one.
mhm,
um but I do recommend like finding some type of mentor or consultant or somebody that is experienced. It'll save you a lot of time. It'll save you a lot of save you from making a lot of mistakes. Pretty much save you a lot of money.
mhm.
So I do recommend finding somebody if you're starting from the ground up and you have no familiarity with the industry.
Gotcha. Gotcha. In terms of funding, like how are you guys funding these deals? Like 20% down, like through a bank, or like how are you, is it just from the income from the facilities that are using to fund it? Like how are you funding it like yourself, or how are you recommending people fund it?
Are you talking about the property or the business?
The business itself.
So the business, I've always used my own money. I've never gotten loans. And it's just because of, when I'm operating a facility and I am generating positive income, so I'm able to use that to leverage to scale.
Hmm.
Um, so, private money, SBA loans, there is, savings, same thing, same resources that you would use to purchase investment property.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Are opening a facility to try to um, have that vision of at least opening up two or three within like maybe a 10 to 20-mile radius, because
Hmm.
then you're able to use the economies of scaling. You can share your manager, you can share your administrator, you can share staff, share
Oh,
expenses.
that's so
Your
good.
expense ratio will drop. Yeah, your expense ratio will drop down and um to like 35%. It's a big difference. So your cash flow is higher per home because you're sharing those expenses.
Awesome. That's a really good idea. Having like them close to each other. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Mhm, mhm.
Well, that's this is all really good like information that you've shared with us, from management to, having that radius. Like how can someone reach you if they're interested in using your services? Like what's the best way to reach you?
So I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Um, I know, I think you found me through Facebook.
Yeah, like a Facebook group. That's right. Yeah. On
Yeah,
Instagram, is it the same thing? Is it Annabelle Lewis at Instagram or what?
let me check. I think it's different. The link is on my Facebook though.
Okay, I'll put it in the show notes, like on YouTube and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And then my daughter is also starting a academy and an ebook. So the
Nice.
website is, let me double check really quick before I put it out there.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put the link on the YouTube like details and stuff so people can like reach it easily. But that's
Okay.
really excellent.
Yeah, it's assistedlivingexcellence.com. So that you would be able to reach me there
Okay, that's
or on Facebook.
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is a lot of info for a rookie and the right direction to get him started as well. But
Oh, you're
yeah, yeah.
welcome.
Thank you so much for taking my call. We'll talk soon.
Good luck on your journey.